everybody, and welcome back to Out of Body. My name is Sabrina, and today I'm really excited to talk to you guys about an out-of-body experience I had recently, where I actually ended up finding my grandpa. So in the last video that I did on an out-of-body experience is one where I found my grandma and I was looking for my grandpa. I didn't find him in that one, but in the later experience I actually did end up finding him, and it was a really cool experience. So anyway, I want to talk about that today. I do apologize if you can hear like the mowing outside. My husband's mowing right now, but I figured this would be a good time for me to just jump on here and do this while he's doing that. So this experience was pretty significant, not just because I found my grandpa, but also because I actually found one of the territories that Robert Monroe referred to. If you're not familiar with Robert Monroe, he's someone who practiced astral projection, kind of came upon it on accident, and he's done so much with it. He's passed away now, but he started the Monroe Institute, where they actually teach people about astral projection and out-of-body experiences, and he had a lot of experiences. He wrote books. Journeys Out of the Body was his first book. Anyway, in these books, he talked about these belief system territories. Now, these belief system territories were places in the astral realm after someone dies where they would go if they were very, very deep into a specific belief system, meaning a religion, such as Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, any of those, or anything else. Now, these belief system territories, as far as the why they exist, I'm trying to remember back to what he had researched in his books. Some of you who know more about it may be able to comment down below and remind me. Basically, these territories that were set up for people who, when they die, it's a place that they feel comfortable going to, because it's a place where they can feel comfortable in their organized religion that they died devoted to, if that makes sense. So in this experience, I believe that I actually went to one of these places. Now, the one I went to differed a little bit because it wasn't a belief system territory that just had one belief system. It had many. So that's what kind of makes it interesting as well. So anyway, without any further ado, or whatever people say, I'll just get right into what happened. So whenever I left my body, it took me quite a few attempts to actually leave my body that morning. This was about 3 months ago. But once I finally got out of my body, I rolled out onto the floor, and once I got myself upright, I thought, okay, what do I want to do? And I thought, oh, I want to find my grandpa. Let's see if I can find him. And so I just focused on him with my thought, and like I normally do, I reached my hands like straight up in the air and just focused on his name. And before I knew it, I was up in the sky, flying straight up. And then at some point, after some seconds is what it felt like, maybe 15 seconds, I level out, and then I start to spiral downward, and I land somewhere. So when I land in this place, like some of the other experiences I've had, it is a very, very beautiful place, very green grass everywhere. I'm outside. The difference in this place is that it wasn't real sunny, which I actually like because I'm not a huge fan of the sun. My eyes are really sensitive to it, and obviously I'm very pale, I burn. So I actually prefer kind of overcast kind of days, and this is what this place felt like. It was like kind of cloudy, there was a little bit of sun peeking through the clouds, and it was like it had just rained there. So it was really, really dewy, just beautiful. First thing I noticed is that there's kind of like this paved sidewalk area in front of me, and then there's a big circular paved area with actually like a fountain in the middle, and I thought that was really cool. And then before I know it, I noticed this man just kind of running towards me, and immediately when I see him, not because of what he looked like, but because just the connection that I felt, I knew that it was my grandpa. So it was really cool. Now, he didn't look anything like I remembered him when he was on Earth, because he was an old man when he was on Earth. I knew him, but he looked similar to the way I've seen in pictures of him when he was younger, like when he was my age or younger. So that was kind of neat. He looked really young again. And anyway, so he's coming towards me, And then what's really, really cool is what he says, and it validates a couple of things. Like in my last video when I talked about how my grandma remembered that I astral project. So it's like she keeps track of what I'm doing. She knows what I'm into and what I'm doing in my life. Well, when my grandpa was coming towards me, he kept saying over and over again, "You found me, you found me, you found me. I knew you would find me. One of these days, eventually, I knew you'd find me." And it was such a neat moment, because I was like, oh my gosh, he knows. He knows what's going on. He knows like what I do, and that I've been trying to find him. And he said, "I knew you'd find me eventually. I knew you'd find me." And then we embraced, and it was amazing. So one thing I did notice when we embraced, and I'm not 100% on this, I think that this territory that I was in may have actually been a physical realm, meaning that he was actually in a physical body. Now, there are some places in the afterlife, or whatever you want to call it, outside of our physical, world, that where people can actually embody, and it kind of just gives them a nice transition between, the physical life on earth and then spiritual after death. They can embody and kind of still have a physical experience while they're kind of acclimating, I guess you would say, between earth and the afterlife. And the reason why I felt like this was a physical realm is because when I hugged him, I kind of almost went through him in a way, because I was in an astral body. I wasn't in a physical body, and I could actually feel, because when you're in your astral body, you can still feel physical things. If it's a little bit different than with a physical body, but you can still feel things that are physical. And so when we embraced, I actually felt, it sounds weird, but his face was like the side of his face was like right here on the side of mine when we embraced. And I could feel like his 5 o'clock shadow, if that makes sense, like a little bit of his facial hair brush up against my cheek. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like I could feel facial hair, I could feel physical, parts of him. So I think that's a possibility. It could be that this was a physical realm, could be that it wasn't, and maybe that for whatever reason my mind just kind of translated it that way. So anyway, after that, we pull apart, and he says, "Let me show you around." And he seems so happy. He just had this big grin on his face, and he's like, "Let me show you around this place." And he just zooms away from me, like really superhuman fast. I was just like, oh crap, I can't go that fast. I was trying to like walk, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm not in a physical body. I can do what he just did. I can like think of just being right next to him, and then I'll be there. And that's what I did. So I just focused on him and like ending up right next to him. And then that's what happened. I ended up just kind of zooming like he did, and I was right next to him. So then what he wanted to show me, and this is what's kind of interesting, this is the part where I kind of start to figure out what this place is. Because at first I really had no idea. I was like, well, this is a neat place, and here's my grandpa, but what is this? And so there's these little cottage buildings. They're very, very small, like a one-room cottage kind of building. And there's about, from what I can see in front of me, there was at least 4 or 5. There may have been more further down. But he brought me in front of this one in particular, and he was just kind of showing me around, saying, here's where I stay, here's what this place has. And so I kind of walked on my own a little bit, and I went inside one of those cottage buildings. The first thing I noticed is I walk in, these buildings didn't have doors. I noticed that. They were almost like just these little stone buildings. Like, it sounds silly, but almost like the Flintstones is what it reminds me of, like just these little huts, like made out of stone, and they didn't have a door, it was just like this open little doorway. Anyway, so I walk in and I look to my left, and the first thing I noticed, which just confused me at first, I noticed some like very Catholic kind of memorabilia, I guess you would say. Like there was rosaries, there was a statue of Jesus, there was a statue of Mary. Everything was very much kind of the traditional Catholic look as far as it was how it was decorated. And I noticed that there was a small table and 2 chairs. So like a place where 2 people could just talk. And it was very nice, but I was sitting there like, okay, I'm a little bit confused, because if this is the afterlife, I mean, from what all I've experienced in the study that I've done, You know, I know that there's not one particular religion that is like the answer to the universe, if that makes sense. And I was brought up Catholic, you know, I have a lot of respect for Catholicism, but even I know that Catholicism is not like the only way to God or the only way to an afterlife, you know. So I was a little bit confused. I was like, what's with all the Catholic stuff in here? But my grandpa was very much a Catholic when he was on earth. Very, very devout Catholic. In that moment, I didn't really connect that. I was just like, what's with all this stuff? And then I turn around and I look at the other side of the room. The other side of the room, again, has a table with 2 chairs. I'm not really sure which religion or spiritual practice was for this side of the room. All I can say is that it was kind of what would remind me of kind of Chinese tradition, because there was like kind of red and yellow colors, there was dragons, there were kind of Chinese symbols and things. But I didn't stay in there very long, so I'm not sure if it was maybe a little bit of Buddhism, or I'm not really sure. But anyway, so that side obviously was completely different than the Catholic side. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. It made me feel better in a way. So I was like, okay, there's not just Catholic stuff, there's another religion. So I walk out of there, and I don't go in the next cottage over, I just kind of peer around. I can see that that one is set up the same way, except it's 2 other religions. I don't remember which ones they were, but I know they were different than the one I just came out of. So I was like, oh, and it started to click. I was like, wait a minute, I wonder if this is one of those belief system territories where the whole territory is not devoted to one religion, but there's like these different little huts, these different little rooms for anyone. You know, a lot of people can go there and just find whichever room that they're comfortable in, I guess, if that makes sense. So it was kind of neat. I feel like this place had something for everybody, a lot of different religions. And it makes sense, then it clicked for me too, it made sense that my grandpa pointed me to that first one that had the Catholic side, because he was a very devout Catholic when he was on earth. So I was like, okay, this is totally making sense now. And what's really funny at this point, now one thing I forgot to mention earlier, whenever he pointed me towards that cottage and before I went in, he also kind of introduced me to a few women that were sitting in front of it. They were just kind of sitting on like a bench or something. And I just kind of said hello. And then I asked them, I was like, do you know where you are? Like, what is this place? I just asked them, like, where are we? Like, what is this place? And they were kind of like, we don't know. You know, they just kind of acted nonchalant, kind of almost weirded out that I would ask that. You know, it's like they don't really care because they just like it there, kind of thing is what it seemed like. Because they were like, we don't know, like, I don't know what this place is. And so I was like, oh, you don't? And then that's when I went into the first cottage. So what's funny is after I went through all of that and I realized what this place was, or what I thought it was, I went back out to those women and I said, really, you know, like I exclaimed, I was like, I know what this place is. I know where you guys are. I know what this is. And they were looking at me like, okay, what is it? Like, they didn't really care, you know, they were just kind of like, why does it matter? Kind of thing. That's what it seemed like. They just didn't really care where they were. They just were at peace. And I was just about to tell them. I was so excited. I was like, I know where you guys are. I know what this place is. And all of a sudden, I start to feel my spirit floating up. And I'm like, crap. I'm probably not supposed to tell them, am I? So I was about to spill the beans to these ladies and tell them where they were. It's not that they shouldn't know where they are. For one thing, I could be wrong. It might not be a belief system territory. I could have been wrong. I felt like I knew that's what it was, and I still feel like that's what it was. But that might be one reason why I was kind of pulled away. Another reason could be just simply that, you know, it would take away from their experience if they knew what it was, because maybe to them, especially some of them that were Catholic, they may have thought that was purgatory. You know, they may have thought that this is kind of a in-between place where we can kind of acclimate and learn and then go to heaven, you know. Or some of the other people The other religions might think it's something else, you know, kind of a holding area while they wait for their loved ones, or a holding area where they wait and they learn until they're good enough to further on. And now I don't really feel like someone was pulling me away. Like I very, very, very much believe in free will on earth and everywhere else. I don't feel like anybody can really make you do anything. I don't feel like anyone sends you anywhere, especially when you die. Personally, that's just how I feel. It's like, now with that being said, I do believe in like a higher power, as you would call it, you know, or God or the source, but I don't believe that he sends people places. So I don't feel like I was like dragged away by somebody. What it actually felt like to me was my own spirit was just like drifting away, like, nope, not supposed to, like, nope, we're not gonna do that. Because when I'm in an out-of-body experience, I'm not just in spirit form, I have my consciousness with me. And my consciousness isn't always aware of all that is, or, you know, the big picture and things, but my spirit is. So I felt like in that moment, my spirit was just like, nope, this is not a part. This is not what we're supposed to do. That's not what I want to do. You're not thinking straight. You know, like, this is not what we want to do. It's time to go, you know, because I felt like my spirit just wanted to go back to my body. So that's what happened. I ended up just kind of gradually floating away. Unfortunately, I didn't get to say goodbye to my grandpa. I felt bad about that, but I couldn't control it. I was just floating away. It's like my spirit was like, nope, let's go back. So I just floated on, ended up going back to my body, and as soon as I woke up, I was like, oh crap. I was like, man, I kind of ruined that one, but it was still a really good experience. I'm really glad that I had that experience, because I do feel like I went to one of those belief system territories, and it's really, really interesting. And like I said, I saw my grandpa too, so it was a win-win. So that is the end of that experience. What do you guys think? I would love to hear in the comments what you guys think as far as, where do you think I really went? Or, you know, what kind of place do you think that it was? If it wasn't a belief system territory, if it was something else? And also, do you think it was a physical reality? Do you think that's possible? Or do you think that it was a spiritual realm? I definitely encourage you guys to comment anything, any questions, just anything you want to say down below, because I love your guys' comments. I love responding. And one thing I did want to say here at the end is that I keep it honest with you guys. I'm pretty transparent. What you see is what you get with me. And I'll be honest, I've only got a couple more experiences that I haven't talked about on here that I can talk about, or that I will. I talk about all of them, you know, but there's only 2 more that I've had at this point. After that, you know, I'm not going to start making stuff up. I don't make this stuff up. These are real experiences, and until I have another one, you know, I may not have any of these for a while, like I said, other than 2 more that I can do. So with that being said, I definitely don't have a problem with content on this channel. There's tons of things I can talk about on here to do with the afterlife and the metaphysical. There's so many things that I have yet to talk about on here. But I wanted to let you guys know, if you're comfortable with it, if you've had your own experiences, I have an email set up, and it's in the description box below. It's outofbodystorytime@gmail.com. If you're comfortable with it and want to share your story on this channel, I would love, love, love for you to email it to me, and I can read it on this channel and talk about it. The main reason why I want to do that is because I really see this channel as a community. I'm not on here just to talk about me. I mean, I talk about my experiences mostly in the hopes that it'll trigger someone else to do the same thing, because I love to hear about y'all's experiences. And so that's why I really want to encourage you, if you've had your own, even if it's not an astral projection experience, even if it's just like something strange that happened, or a paranormal experience, or just anything like that that's along this topic that you would feel comfortable with me sharing on here, I would love that. I would absolutely love that, because I see this as a community, and I want us to help each other out and to hear each other out. And yeah, that's just kind of basically it. Now, I also have that email set up as well if you have questions or something that you want to comment or question about that you don't want everybody else to see. If you just want to ask me something personally, you can send it there too. And I'm not going to talk about it on here. I won't talk about anything on here that anybody sends me unless you specifically give me permission to do so. And if you want to remain anonymous, if you still want me to share your story, but you don't want me to use your name or anybody's names, I'll do that. I can do that as well. Other than that, that is the end of this video. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope that this story made sense. And I hope that it helps some of you if you learn something, or if it helps just kind of spark your interest. Like I said, I've got 2 more experiences I can talk about on here. And other than that, I'll probably start talking about some haunted Memphis stuff and maybe some other things. If there's anything in particular you would like to see me do on here, that's helpful as well. If you want to comment that down below or email me, either way. That's helpful too, to see what you guys want to see. I feel like these true experience stories are what you guys enjoy the most. It's from what my analytics say. But I would love to hear directly from you what you want to see. Yep, so that is it for today. I appreciate you guys watching, and I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.